Hello there! How are you doing? Greetings. I was working yesterday on a little device here with some fine little tools, and I made the mistake of having my phone behind me. It was nice and quiet, and this item isn't made anymore, so needless to say, it's hard to get parts for it. So when the phone rang, it startled me, and then I flicked one of the tools and a tiny little spring and went dink. I spent an hour and a half nearly looking for it. I never found it, so it was like a 5-cent piece of spring steel. It's a spring, and it cost me $10 to order it. So, lesson learned. Vital lesson learned. This really is the most important lesson. Someone's going to say, well, that's your opinion. And it's not. It makes living this way a whole lot easier. You know, if some alien entities landed, like the top 5 or top 3 things that they would notice is that human misery comes about from belief systems. I was in a retail store today, and by the way, need I point out the fact that the larger a retail store is, unquestionably the more evil that it is. So there's some people looking at something in the store that I'm quite familiar with, and it's absolute garbage. The case of it's made out of plastic, and I didn't know it, but I think one of the guys there that was talking about it was one of the reps. They sell it in the store, and I made a declarative statement about why it's junk. Not my opinion that it's junk, but, I can go down the laundry list of why it's junk. He said I was just kind of cruising through the store, walking, because this large box retail store was right next to Costco, which, by the way, is another, horrible entity. I'm ashamed to say that I ever go there. And as I was 3/4 of the way out the store, there's a couple people that you could tell they're management, because they're very self-important, even though they're a couple of Gen Z people. They were chasing me down to catch up with me before I left the store. And one guy didn't speak very good English. He must have been from up in the hills, and he says, "We don't like your shopping habits." It sounds like something an English person would say with that, an English accent. I was like, "Abbott? Excuse me, what are you trying to say?" He kept saying the word Abbott, and he meant to say shopping habit. For some reason, the guy couldn't say the word habit. So it had to have been what I actually commented about in the back of the store about something being absolute garbage, which it is absolute garbage. And he says, "Oh, you're trespassing here." He says, "We don't want you." The only reason I walked in that store was just to take a peek around. The store is extremely despicable, and I kind of chuckled a little bit, kept on walking out the store. To me, that's a badge of honor. This happened to me many years ago when I was in Whole Foods, and I don't care if, some stranger comes up to me and, jokingly gives me a little slug on the shoulder. It's like, "Hey, what's up? We went to high school together," or something like that. Hey, even though it's a total stranger to me. I'm not adverse to someone putting their hand on my shoulder. But it was when the whole face dinky thing was going on, when everybody was wearing a face dinky. And the guy forcibly, put his hand on my shoulder because I had my face dinky up. And, I gave him down the road, and they sent me a legal letter in the mail. I don't know how they found me. Of course, that company is owned by Amazon. They sent me a legal letter. It's like, "Oh, we are not welcome back at the store." It's like, well, this is great. And evil entities don't like you. You're doing something right. You should always be worried about people that are loved by evil entities. This is all about, people that can't handle the truth. I got 8,500 videos on YouTube. I've heard it all. "Oh, you're fat, you're bald, you're tattooed. I don't like your voice. I don't like this." That's all well and fine. I don't care. But at least don't lie about me. You say you can't stand me. I know what I look like, and I'm someone that is in love with the truth, and specifically wisdom above all else. I don't praise intellect or IQ. Everybody keeps talking about IQ. Intelligence is never to be confused with wisdom, but people really, really are in love with lies and consensus. I've said this a million times. If you are in any way, shape, or form in love with consensus, and this is how big corporations get big, is that they lie and they operate off of truth by consensus. And there's no such thing as truth by consensus. And that, of course, is an offspring of what I've said many countless times, is that nothing popular is true and nothing true is popular. Anyway, a big store gets bigger, i.e. popular, is by consensus and lies. And they are definitionally a soulless entity. Any and all corporations, of course, are. This is, of course, not about that. There's a statement in the Bible. It talks about the foolish man who builds his house upon the sands of the beach. You know, it can be all well and fine until a hurricane comes along or bad weather, then it all gets wiped out. I've driven by many houses that, you know, it's like, okay, it's a super rich person. If they have to rebuild, they could do it. It's like, why is this house built on stilts right near the beach? It doesn't matter that it's 20 feet off the ground on stilts. It's still built on the sands, even if you build it deep enough. And by the way, that harkens back to there's some major super tall thing right on the beach, and it's super tall. It's in Miami. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a skyscraper right literally on the beach. And I forget what it's sinking by every year, but it's significant. Not only is it a house built on the beach, right on the beach, it's a skyscraper. I forget the name of it. It's in Miami. But this is actually getting worse, and it's always the source of downfall. Anyway, getting back to my metaphor of people being in love with lies and consensus, if some aliens lay say, you know, you humans are way more miserable than you need to be, and the humans would say, you know, okay, Mr. Alien, advanced speed, you know, what is exactly, you know, the problem? Well, you've built up this facade like a person that builds a house on the sands, or somebody that, you know, has a bubble of beliefs that is completely untrue. Ancient India, by the way, I hadn't seen the movie Gandhi in like decades, and I saw it like a few days ago. And the political people would show up in tents the same way they did in ancient days, except in that case it was philosophy and metaphysics that they would debate. You'd have multiple people, and you know, they would engage in confrontation with one another regarding beliefs. And you know, if something rings true, the people stayed around. If it rang hollow and false and it didn't stand up to scrutiny, people would leave, or it would quickly, you know, become disowned by the person that was espousing it, because it was obvious that it couldn't stand the light of day. The answer to more speech, or to speech that people don't like, is more speech. You know, if it's true, any sort of rabble is going to quiet down. If it's false, it will be brought down by its own, you know, by its own self, because it is untrue. It will quiet down. If it's suppressed, then what happens is it builds up like pressure on a kettle that's on the stove. The things that, like, I see, and it's been going on for years now, that are happening in the UK and especially in Germany. I think CBS had a thing, and they were talking to some government officials, and you know, some guy posted an unkind meme or cartoon in Germany, and you know, they busted the guy's door down in Deutschland there. And, you know, they seized his laptop and his cell phone, and they hauled him away. And I don't know, did Germany didn't learn anything from, you know, I'm half German. I have the right to be able to, you know, poke the stick at Deutschland there. Did they learn nothing in 1917 and 1944? Did Germany learn nothing? But I'm seeing the exact same thing out of England and Australia. You know, the guy that was across the street silently, quietly praying on the street. Yeah, and there's a video of it, and the coppers come up, and you know, they haul the guy away for quietly praying on the street. Human beings are kind of like an animal that can only survive if it has a heating blanket, a 3-course meal every day, and a roofed shelter over its head. You know, if it can't withstand its natural element or natural habitat, then the animal, by its very nature, should go extinct. There's so much of humanity who's harboring belief systems that are just so repugnantly faulty. It's like, you know, the fragile little animal, like one of those little shaken Chihuahua dogs. You know, you just, like, you could yell out its name and it would scare it so bad it could give it a heart attack. I've heard of little dogs like that. They're so skittish, and, you know, they're so against natural order because they've been bred that way. You know, nature never produced those little shivering Chihuahuas that are in the corner, you know, tinkling in the corner, shaking like a leaf. You know, you yell out its name, and the dog, you know, gets scared to death, and it, you know, keels over. Most people have beliefs like that. And I do not care what anybody believes one way or another. The point is, if it can't stand the light of day, like a vampire, you know, can't stand the light of the sun and of truth. Well, whose truth? Your truth? I'm talking about genuine truth. Something that is objective and demonstrable. You know, like metaphysics is not objective, but it still has a super ironclad skin of logic and rationality behind it, even though you can't prove it objectively. It's like, well, that's completely implausible. Even when we can't point to it objectively, the thing that you're positing about is completely untenable. Untenable is a great word. It just means it's absolutely ludicrous. It's just jabberwocky nonsense. I have a badge of honor that I was kicked out of that big box store today. They say, you're trespassing. He says, we don't like your shopping habits. He kept trying to say habit, but he didn't know how to say habit. Shows you how smart he is. I said, Abbott? I literally said, Abbott? I said, what are you talking about, Abbott? He said, Abbott. I said, oh, you're trying to say habit. I do that, by the way. It really upsets people when they try to say something clearly. It's like, oh, you're trying to say this word. And nothing makes people, you know. I noticed people are always protesting about nonsense, but people should protest about things that they have proof or evidence for. Like something is just an absolute wrong. Everybody, I don't care what anybody thinks about the musky muskrat up in Washington, D.C., looking at all the numbers of government waste and fraud. But of all the hills, you know, to plant your flag on, or, you know, to, you know, as they say, the hill to perish on, kind of like a soldier. It's like, this is the hill I'm going to meet my end on. Of all the hills to perish on, I find it extremely, and it's not me that finds it that way, anybody with a rational brain. You choose this hill, you know, finding government fraud and waste. I'm pretty sure that's not a left or a right thing. That's a common sense thing. You know, taxpayers, especially poor ones like me, you know, finding fraud and waste and gov and nixing it out. It's like, that's the hill you want to protest on? You're against whatever anybody thinks about the musky muskrat, as I humorously call him. I don't care about him one way or another, what anybody thinks about him. There's a whole entity and our new government that's behind rooting that out. Whether they do or not, I don't know. They apparently already have to the tune of $50 billion, and it's going to keep going every day. But, you know, who on earth in their right mind is against exposing fraud and abuse at the level of the government? I mean, that's just mind-numbing. You know, if you go into a church, and not angrily, because I can't stand it when someone says tone. Anytime someone says, I don't like your tone, that means they have nothing intelligent to say against what you have said. I don't like your tone. It's like, it doesn't matter, my tone doesn't matter, facts matter. Always cut someone off right then and there immediately. Anytime someone uses the word tone, never forget that. Tone. There's a few other things that they say. But if you go into a church and you start asking rational questions, it's like, you know, here in the Holy Book, chapter what, verse what, It says, they'll kick you out. If you can handle the questions, if the thing that you're espousing, a belief system, everybody has their own silly little belief systems, unfortunately. But every human being would be a whole lot happier without them. They think that's essential to their being. They identify with this false construct, like a mask somebody wears. Like in a masquerade ball, they project, they show themselves to be somebody else, and they put time into creating that mask and who they appear to be. It's kind of like people who put a bunch of makeup on to look a lot younger or a lot prettier. They identify with that, and the notion of removing that, it frightens them, it upsets them. I'm not that way at all. Nobody else should be that way either. These false constructs that everybody thinks are themselves are not only not themselves, they're causing your bottomless misery. Once again, getting back to, this hypothetical of aliens, they say, y'all are miserable because you stand behind and believe in and identify with these crazy belief systems that have no basis in rationality or logic whatsoever. You can actually find solace in wisdom, which is the only true solace that there is. Yeah, but if you go into a church, you start asking rational questions, they're going to kick you out. These entities, of the countless ones that there are, if you can't handle the questions, then you can't handle the truth. And if you can't handle the truth, then you're a person that believes and also espouses lies, nonsense, rubbish, and the things that makes everybody, including yourself, especially so, miserable. This is a joke, and this is the only time I've ever been to a place, paid a ticket to get in to see something. Never a concert, never a performer. The only time ever in my life is he's very, very nerdy, passes himself off as like a super geek. His name is Emo Phillips. This is about belief systems. This is a great joke. He told it, Emo Phillips. He says, once I saw a guy on a bridge, he was standing on the edge, and I said to him, don't do it! And then the guy responded on the edge of the bridge. He said, nobody loves me. And I said, well, God loves you. He said, do you believe in God? And then the guy says, yes, I do. He said, are you a Christian or other faith? He said, I'm a Christian. I said, oh, me too. I said, Protestant or Catholic? And he said, Protestant. I said, oh, me too. Then I said to him on the edge, what franchise? He said, Baptist. I said, oh my God, I'm a Baptist too. Northern Baptist or Southern Baptist? He said, Northern Baptist. And I said, oh, me too, I'm a Northern Conservative Baptist. Or are you also that, or a Northern Liberal Baptist? He said, I'm a Northern Conservative Baptist. And I said, oh, me too. And I asked him again, I said, are you a Northern Conservative Baptist, Great Lakes region, or Northern Conservative Baptist, Eastern region? And he said, Northern Conservative Baptist, Great Lakes region. I said, well, me too. Wonderful. Then I asked him again, I said, are you Northern Conservative Baptist, Great Lakes region, Council of 1879, or are you a Northern Conservative Baptist, Great Lakes region, Council of 1912? And he said, Northern Conservative Baptist, Great Lakes Regional Council of 1912. And then my eyes got really big, and then I put forward my arms, and I said, perish, heretic! And then I pushed him over the edge. So it's like 1/2 of 1 degree of separation, and yet people identify with that false mask, a mirage of belief. You are not your intelligence or lack thereof. You are not your beliefs. You're not the thing that you see in the mirror, the psychophysical meat suit. And everybody goes walking around parading that like it is something. Your Rolex, your fancy car, your beautiful looks, your intellect. All of those things are ephemera, they're mirages, they're holograms, they're completely unreal. Yet people are so strongly invested in them. I told the truth today when I said something, and I know quite a bit about what I made a statement about. I said that stuff is absolute junk, boom, 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 boom. Reasoning for it. Plastic-cased garbage. And oh, that's so, I think the one guy was a representative of it. He must have talked to the management. How dare you have that guy in your... I was like, they chased me down. As I was already 3/4 of the way out of the store. So they were going to put up with that. I should have said I didn't care. I must never go in the store because the store is so reprehensible in every way, shape, or form. I should have said, what exactly did I get wrong? And if I had actually asked that question, there wouldn't have been an answer. Well, we don't care. We want you out of here. It's the same thing as if you go to a church and you start, excuse me, sir, I'd like to ask you an honest, rational question. You know, how is this possible? This conflicts with rationality and logic. And they won't put up with that. So much of this world are but like those little chihuahuas that are tinkling in the corner and they're shaking. They can't handle it. Like, once again, you could yell for the dog and it would scare the dog literally to pieces and it would just keel over. People love those little teacup poodles. There's one that'll actually fit inside of a teacup. That's as large as it gets, is like the size of a large rat. And I get why that's cute. People have bred those dogs the same way they breed the identity of themselves as their beliefs. You know, it's a cute little dog. You love to hold it. Oh my God, it's the cutest little dog in the world. Look at that. It's full grown. It's only about that big. Oh, it's so cute. Ah, look at that. But, you know, it couldn't even take a cold dip. You could, like, accidentally dip that dog accidentally, like in a cold puddle. I'm going to take it for a walk. And the little doggy fell into a cold puddle because it's wintertime out. And, well, the dog couldn't survive a 5-second dip in a cold puddle. It would go, it would just keel over. Everybody, when I say everybody, I mean way over 99%, are people living in a nutshell sniffing their own exhaust fumes, and they're, you know, in love with the smell, and, you know, they can't handle the truth. You know, that old movie line from A Few Good Men where Jack Nicklaus says, you can't handle the truth. He says, what do you want? I want the truth. He goes, you can't handle the truth. And most people are that way. This is such an important thing. You're not taught this in church. You're not taught this in high school or college. But people think that is a core essential, it's called a Jesus nut. I don't know what a Jesus nut is. If the nut gets dislodged off of the helicopter blade, you start praying to Jeebus, because it's what's holding the helicopter blades on. It's called the Jesus nut. Just people unravel. They can't take it. But that is not essential to leading, you know, a life of fulfillment. You know, having strength in something that is pure and true. Everybody's got their house built on the sands. That's wonderful when there's no bad weather around. You know, it's like, wow, I'm right on the beach, 10 feet up on elevated stilts, this house. Look at the scenery, and go up there to look up the beach, and there down the beach, and I'm only 30 feet from the beach shore. Yeah, that's wonderful until the storm rolls in. When you start asking hard questions, it's just like that little teacup poodle. It can't take it. I made declarative statements today that I in no way, shape, or form regret. Large businesses are pure evil. They are. They only got that way, large, due to lies and stamping of information. You know, what's going on in Germany right now? Like, Germany never learned its lesson. Never learned from the early half of the last century. They never learned. The UK has never learned anything. I hate to say that. Excuse me, I'm so sorry I sneezed. I had too much pepper on my chicken sandwich. You can buy it in a bag. It's called chicken thigh meat, and it's already cooked. You just heat it up. Just heating it up on the skillet. Tastes really good. There's no chemicals in it. I'm sure someone's going to go after me for eating a chicken thigh sandwich. How dare you? That's terrible. I just wish people would think about this. There's nothing anybody says to me that moves me. My house, proverbially, is built on the rocks. People say all sorts of horrible things in comments and live stream to me. I don't care. What do I care? What do I care what people think of me? And if they have something intelligent and rational to say, it's like, you know, you're not right, or it's impossible to agree with that statement because boom, 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 boom. You know, they present a list of facts. Or logic or reason, of which I'm always open to that, but I'm not closed off to any adverse of people flinging words at me, but it doesn't affect me. And I don't identify with any of that. People can say I'm fat, bald, and tattooed and bald. It's like, well, all of that is true. Moderately ugly. It's like, well, that's also too true. I have people in live stream, oh, how dare you say those things about yourself? It's like, I'm not. I mean, they're accurate and true. To be someone that's in love with wisdom and truth, you have to accept what is wise and true. And once you do, it doesn't affect you anymore. I don't identify with that. There's a soul driving a meat suit around that's fat, bald, and tattooed. I get that. But the most repeated phrase in ancient Pali is Yisakaya Mami Sata. The body is not the soul, or this is not that which I truly am, meaning in pure subjectivity. And nobody was taught this. I've talked about this a couple times before in video, but nobody apparently wants to learn their lesson on this. It is an extremely unevolved and unenlightened aspect of humanity. I will never shrink down or regret or second guess anything that I've factually said about anything. What am I supposed to do? Feel shame for telling the truth? Really? Something wrong with you. If you want me to feel shame for telling the truth, then the fault lies with yourself. All I've done is state, like was that Hans Christian Andersen tale where, the king is told he has such fine clothing on that it's invisible, and of course he's wearing his birthday suit, the king is. He's parading through the street, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, look at the marvelous clothing of the king. And the little kid doesn't care. The little kid speaks the truth, like, the king is, he's in the buff, which he is. King didn't want to hear that. That's a great tale from Hans Christian, because everybody, living in a belief, everybody's supporting that belief, which makes it worse. It's bad enough that people have a crazy belief system built up around them. When other people are so fragile that they support that ignorance and lies, like, oh yeah, it's wonderful. You got people reinforcing. It's delusion compounded on top of delusion. Lie compounded on lie. Belief that's supported by lies, buttressed by lies. And that's not a way to live, because it'll always bite you. It always will. If you live in the truth and you live in the light of wisdom, you don't have to worry about these things. But nobody seems to get that lesson. Nobody seems to care. So the truth, people can't handle the truth. I'm proud to say that I can handle it. Some people are shocked when they tell me things thinking it's going to make me upset. I'm going to get this guy. And they say it, and I'm like, well, that's accurate, So, what are you going to do? There's nothing you could do to me. Nothing. What are you going to do? Tell me the truth? You think I'm afraid of the truth on anything? Something else you need to remember, and I've talked about this before. If you're proven right, you're on the path to the ultimate goal. If you're proven wrong, then you're corrected and put on the path to what is righteous and true. A truth seeker loves being proven right, and a truth seeker loves being proven wrong. And that is something you definitely didn't learn. But you should, and you should think about it. Thank you so much for watching. Check me out in live stream. I love talking with you all there. A lot of books and articles on my Substack, including the description below. Lux Veritas. I'll never find that spring I lost.